So the last thing we'll look at in this lesson is working with text wrap. So let's go ahead and close up this panel group, select all of these frames and delete them. And let's also select this vertical line here. It might be hard to see, so just click it outside of the document trim area, grab it and delete it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to place an image inside our layout that will be a good example for understanding text wrap. So let's go to File, Place, and we'll navigate to Lesson 3 of Part 2 of our project files. And here I have a file for you called wrapme.psd. So grab that file, click Open, and then let's just click and place that down here on the right-hand side of the page. Now, initially it's quite large, so let's scale this down a little bit. Let's present this at maybe 50%. I think that looks much better. Let's take this image and put it so that it basically spans the bottom of the page, and actually let's move it over here to the right just a little bit. Now we'll also take this text frame here, and this is the one that we're going to be wrapping around this image. So to open the text wrap panel, just come up here to the menu, slide over to Window, and choose Text Wrap. Open up this text wrap panel. We might want to move this over a little bit so that we can see the panel, the image, and the text. So make sure the image is selected with your black arrow tool. Focus on the text wrap panel and notice that the default option here on the left is selected, and that is no text wrap. Now click the second option, and that is wrap around the bounding box. Go ahead and click it and you'll see what happens. The text gets cut off by the frame here. Now if you'd like, move this image a little bit further over to the right, and you can see now that InDesign has enough space on the left-hand side of this column to flow that text. Now that's interesting, but it's not really exciting. We'd like to get the text to interact more actually with the content of this image. So with that in mind, we're going to grab this text frame and let's resize this so that it actually fits both columns. Again, you can see it flowing around the text frame here. Let's move on to other options. Let's select the image again, and instead of the kind of predictable bounding box option, let's click the middle option. This is the really cool, the $1 million button. This allows us to wrap the text around the shape. So at first, this doesn't look any different, and actually it's really not, because what we're wrapping to is really just the sides of the image. But we do have other options. Okay, so here in our contour options, we have several choices to make. There's the bounding box, which was like the first behavior, and that's just the outside edges of the frame. We have alpha channel, and that would actually sniff inside the file and see if there's any transparency in there. Let's take a look at that. And lo and behold, we have created an alpha channel for you. That's just a transparency mask. And now you can see this text actually flowing around the shape of this statue. And if we take the statue image and move it over a little bit, you'll see that update. Now this is a bit of a problem here on the right-hand side, the way that alpha channel was created. So we'd want to move the image over so that we don't have any trap space. So I accidentally moved the text image. Let's nudge that back and grab the image. Move that back over just a little bit there. We don't have any more trapped white space where words can get caught, and that's looking pretty good. Now a couple of other options here. In addition to alpha channel, you also have the option to choose a Photoshop path. So if there's a path in your Photoshop file, you can wrap around that. And graphic frame. Again, that's very similar to the bounding box option. Now, remembering that we have control over placed native Photoshop files, including transparency, let's tie some of these concepts together. Let's make sure that the image is selected. Let's go to the Object menu and choose Object Layer Options. Let's turn on Preview and slide this dialog box over so we can see the results of our work. Right now, the background layer is active. Now, let's turn on White Background, and we can see this image against a white background here. It's cut out, but the background is actually white. Now, let's go ahead and click OK to that. Now, this opens up another exciting possibility. Instead of wrapping around the frame, or a path, or an alpha channel, now we'll choose the Detect Edges option. Give that a second, and now, even though there's no transparency here, InDesign is smart enough to discern the edge of this image and wrap the text around it. When would that be helpful? Imagine you have a bunch of product shots. shot against a nice white background. You could do image extraction on all of those files in Photoshop, but that's a lot of work. Instead, you can just use the text wrap detect edges option here inside of InDesign. And to control the offset, just select the image, come up here to the text wrap panel, and increase the offset value. And you can see the effect of the change here on this text. Now we do have a couple more options. I'll just make sure you understand what's available to you. We have jump object. So this would allow you to take a small graphic, put it inside the middle of a long column, and the text would jump completely over the object with no text on the side. That's what's indicated by that icon. The last option here is to jump to the next column. So the text in a column would get to this text wrap object. The entire bottom of the column would be empty, and the text then would flow to the top of the next column. So I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. We've learned a lot about working with frames, transforming content, and one of my favorite topics, text wrap.